Namaskar, welcome to this webinar. This is Dada Rainjitananda. So the topic today is why are people afraid of intuitional practice? This is from the teachings of Sri Anandamurti. My name is Dada Rainjitananda. So what is this intuitional practice? Or in Sanskrit we call it sadhana. It's an effort to liberate ourselves from the influence of Prakriti. How does this influence of Prakriti manifest? So we saw in previous presentation that Prakriti uses two forces. One is avidya maya and the other one is vidya maya. The avidya uses what we call the 6 internal enemies and the 8 external bondages to keep our mind under certain limitations. Let's say, due to fear, I will be unable to do something. So that is one of the bondages. It keeps our mind unable to go beyond a certain situation. The other side is the Vidya Maya. Vidya Maya has two main characteristics. One is the capacity to use the objects in the right way, and the other is the capacity to know what is good and what is bad. We discussed about good actions, bad actions. Good actions increase the reflection of consciousness in our mind, decrease the influence of Prakriti. And bad action is the opposite, increases the bondage of Prakriti and decreases the reflection of consciousness. Now, this intuitional practice, we can say, is for everyone, every human being. The minimum qualification is to have a human body. But at the same time, we look around the world and we see that very few people are doing it. And why? Is it because of fear? So why there is some fear to do a spiritual practice? Or why people are just bound by their day-to-day activities and not being able to do it? There are some myths associated with spiritual practice. One is that if I want to be serious with the spiritual practice, then I have to give up my day-to-day life in the world. So people think that just leading a regular life and at the same time dedicating oneself to spiritual development are not things that can go together. So they think that it's not possible to reconcile our regular life with the spiritual life. And in the history, we've seen that there were people who wanted to be very serious with spiritual practice. Then they left society, they went to the mountains, forests, forget about the world, and they dedicated only to spiritual life. Even to a monastery, there were monasteries. People go to these monasteries, forget about their life in the family, and dedicate just to spiritual life. So is that the way? If we analyze it with the philosophy, and the philosophy is how can we be free from the influence of Prakriti? We want to remove the influence of avidya maya on our mind. So how to do that? Suppose I think, oh, I can do that if I go to a monastery, forget about the world. But I go to the monastery, and if I'm there, then I'm still thinking about the world, then there is no advantage. So the idea, we cannot run away from the influence of objects. If there is something that is always attracting me, I cannot be free from that just by remaining away from it. Because if one day by chance I come near that object, I will be attracted by it. So the idea here is we have to learn how to control the mind, how to direct the mind, channelize the mind towards something that is more subtle. Our main fight is against the static principle of Prakriti and the mutative principle of Prakriti. And for that, we can take help of the sentient principle of Prakriti, the more subtle principle. And how do we take shelter on this subtle principle? Increasing the influence of consciousness in our life, decreasing the use of static energy. For example, if I have a choice of food, I avoid the static food and I take sentient food. So I take more the sentient force and I avoid the static force. If at home, my environment, I try to keep it clean, organized, and that's more subtle. If it's a big mess, if it's not clean, that's more static. So every opportunity, I make use of the subtle force. In the words of Sri Ananda Murti, intuitional practice, as taught by a great preceptor, is the healing balm. It is with this that one can drive away avidya-maya and gain emancipation. So what is the tool that we can use? Intuitional practice. But it must be the real intuitional practice, taught by a great preceptor. So what is the great preceptor? We saw last time. Is the great preceptor somebody who has many powers, can fly, can walk on the water, can make things materialize? Is that a great preceptor? Somebody who is attracting disciples by demonstrating powers? Usually not. A great preceptor has powers, but will not use those powers to bring the people. Because those people who come attracted by powers, that's what they want. They want powers, so they come attracted by powers. So what should be the attraction? A great master attracts others by the way he lives, in a simple way, by love, devotion. And a great master is able to teach the right practice. So what is the idea? The idea is we should live in the society. At the same time, we practice sadhana. And that is also convenient. Why? Because by having a regular life in the society, one will have stability, will have a home, and can dedicate some time in a regular way to the spiritual practice. Also, one is living in the society, has the chance to help others. And that's very important, to do some service to humanity. In our philosophy, even the monks like me, we don't live in monasteries far away, forget the society. We also live connected to the society, because that's the way we can do service to the society. We do renounce a family life, but why? It's not to get free from something, but it's to be able to move, to travel, so that we can reach everywhere and let people know and teach people how to practice sadhana. So the idea of becoming a monk or a nun should not be just to live secluded, forget the society, but it's the idea to be able to serve more the society because we don't have our own individual family. If we had our own individual family, we had to maintain first our family, and then we would have time to help others. But in case we don't have our family, then we have a lot of energy and time to help others. So the idea is you are living the society. You need some hours per day to do your practice. Suppose you practice meditation half an hour in the morning, half an hour in the evening, plus asanas for a total of another 45 minutes or 1 hour. That makes like 2 hours a day, which is less than 10% of the time we have in a day. If we practice a little bit more intense, let's say we take 3 hours a day, still we have another 21 hours to do service or to do our responsibilities in the society. So it's possible to maintain a certain balance. Okay, now let me ask you a question. This is the question. You can vote. It's more about how is it for you. So, unanimously, it's possible to maintain a balance, but with effort. Second answer. Nobody said yes very easily. Really, it's not very easy. Everything needs an effort. Even the word sadhana, sadhana means effort. Then yes, but it's very difficult. That's like a defeatist approach. No, need to wait until our social responsibilities are over and we retire. But the problem is when we retire, we may be too old for sadhana also. Then the last one, no, we need to choose between one or the other. Well, the whole idea is basically to balance both of them. Okay, thank you. So the conclusion here is that the only way we can escape from the influence of avidya maya, or we can overcome the influence of this avidya maya, is through intuitional practice. Why? Because intuitional practice increases the reflection of consciousness. So just think, we need to do something that increases this reflection of consciousness. It means our mental mirror reflects consciousness. So it must be clean, it must be large. So mind must be expanded. We have to remove the limitations. And to remove limitations, we cannot do it just by, let's say, asking God, oh God, please remove my limitations. That will not really help. It's like I need to make my body strong, and then I'm praying every day, oh God, make my body strong. It's better I go to the gym or I go out, do some exercise, and then I will get a strong body. If I just asking, please make my body strong, it will not become strong. In the same way, it's not enough to ask, oh God, give me this, give me that, make me realized. It will not happen if we don't take a step to do something that increases this reflection of consciousness. There are some people who say, oh, I don't have time. I cannot practice because I have no time. Just, just think. We have 24 hours in a day. Can't we find 1 hour or two to practice? If we really think it's important, if we really think it's important, the time won't be a problem. It's a matter of priority, how to manage time. What should I do in the time that I have at my disposal? If you have a meeting with a very important person, you will not miss it. So you can think, I have a meeting with Saguna Brahma every day at a certain time, and I can't miss that meeting. So if we have the priority, we'll find the time. Every day we find time to eat, so we find time to meditate also. I haven't ever heard somebody telling that I'm very busy during the week, so I don't eat. On Sundays, yes, I have time, so I eat very well on Sunday. Nobody's doing that. People always find the moment to eat because it's a need, it's a priority. Sadhana is also a need. We are human beings because we have the capacity to do sadhana and because we do it. If we have a human body, have the capacity to do sadhana, we don't do it, there is not a big difference between us and animals. There is another situation. People think that this is some other religion from far away, so it's something foreign and I have my own religion. Well, if we are not really satisfied with what we are getting at present in whatever practice we are doing, a religious practice or another practice, it is understandable that we should look for something that may be more efficient. If we find something more efficient, then we should do it. Now, just think about science. Science, different scientists have come up with different theories throughout time, throughout history. When a new theory comes, which explain better the phenomena, people change. People think that, yes, this theory explains better, let us adopt it. And a new theory is adopted. An old theory is left in the history. We still study it. We still try to understand it. We understand its limitations. But at the time of applying, we apply the new one. Now we come to the world of philosophy or religion. What is happening? People came up with a religion which is basically a human interpretation of the divine, a human interpretation of how to reach to the goal, and a human interpretation of what the goal is. And we get attached to it. And the idea that it is something from far or foreign, just imagine that even religions that today we think is local, like Christianity, it came from the Middle East. It came from far and then it got established here. If we say, okay, no, we need a local one, then in the US it will be the Native American religion. That's local. All the others came from abroad. In the field of yoga and whatever we have talked up to now, we have tried to exercise our logic, analyzing what happens, and come up with a theory that can explain what's going on and can help us to move towards liberation. Now, this theory will have an attached practice. this course, we are not talking so much about the practice, we are more in the philosophy. So there should not also be these religious fears, because just by being a fear, it's already one of the bondages. So if we let this fear overcome us, we are basically allowing avidya maya to dominate our mind. And we want to overcome avidya maya. There is a practice, it's a yogic practice called brahmacharya. This practice has been misunderstood throughout history. Even today, we may go and get some respected yoga book, and we can read about this practice, and it will be translated as celibacy. That in order to introvert the mind, to control the mind, one must practice celibacy. And based on that, they try to establish the superiority of being a monk and like that. But that doesn't make sense, because the meaning of the word itself, Brahma is the supreme entity, Charya, to be established on the thought of the supreme entity, is basically seeing Brahma in everything. Philosophically, we studied that everything is Brahma. But practically, we don't see it. We can even understand that, yes, this computer in front of me is Brahma. But really, I don't see it. I still see it as a computer. So the practice of brahmacharya is to enable me to see it as Brahma. If I can do that, then the whole universe will be Brahma for me. Then I'll be realized in a matter of a moment. So how to attain this brahmacharya? It's not just by celibacy. It is going to be attained through sadhana. The process of intuitional practice is the way to attain brahmacharya. At the same time, we should not waste our energy by engaging too much in sex, because that same energy we are using for realization is the transformation of that same physical energy into mental, into spiritual. So we should not waste it, but at the same time, if one is living a family life, that is not the goal. Okay. Well, when to start sadhana? Some people think, oh, when I become old and I have a lot of time, I'm retired, then I can do it. That's not really correct, because the body gets old, and if the body gets old, I don't have energy to do the sadhana. So it's better to start immediately. If you came to it at a more advanced age, no problem. Just start that moment. If you came to it younger, better, but it doesn't. Whenever we start, that's the right moment. That's the spirit. We should not have regrets that, oh, I should have done it before. We shouldn't live with regrets. We should always move forward. So, what is our conclusion for today? Is that if we don't do sadhana because we fear having to sacrifice our enjoyments and our pleasures, that's not rational. What is rational? What is rational is we start the process, like we start meditating. When we start meditating, our mind will start changing. So, what attracted us may attract less and less. And in the course of time, it will be no problem to leave some habits that we understand that are not good for us, but we keep doing. And it will happen many times in our life that we'll be having a certain habit, and maybe we are fighting it, and we are not able to win, up to one day that we win, and then we even forget that we had that problem because our mind changes, our samskara also finishes. So we move in that way, overcoming difficulties. Some people think that, even some people ask me, Dada, you left this, left that, and you cannot do this, cannot do that, so much sacrifice. I'll give a simple example. If you like ice cream and you like, many people say chocolate, okay. If you like chocolate ice cream, if you go to an ice cream shop, maybe there are 20 flavors. But what do? You buy the chocolate ice cream. So I can tell you that you are doing a great sacrifice because you are not, you are sacrificing 19 flavors. But for you, you will say, no, this is not a sacrifice because that's the one I like. So I'm getting that one. So in the same way, in the process of sadhana, what we like, what we want changes towards what? We start liking more the subtle things, and we start not liking the static things. Why? Because the dominating energy within us will be subtle. So we want subtle things. If the dominating energy is more crude, we want crude things. So it's a natural change. So I'm moving towards the summary here. So what's the summary for today? We talked about spiritual life and daily life, and that we have to maintain a certain balance. We have to include our spiritual life in our daily life. We also talked about some myths regarding sadhana. We also said that the main point is to be free from the influence of avidya maya. And to be free from avidya maya, we need to practice. We talked that the idea is not to run away from our responsibilities, but to be able to keep the balance. Okay. Now, let me ask you a question. This question I want you to reply using the chat window, or you could also click on the raise your hands button and I will give you the microphone. This is the question. Is saying prayers the same as intuitional practice? Is it the same thing to say a prayer or to practice sadhana? What would you say? Okay, I will start with the answers that I have at the moment. So the first answer I have here is like this. I repeat the question. Is saying prayers the same as intuitional practice? So I have one answer is, I think it can be if it holds the same meaning and intent. The next one I have is, no, prayer is not the same. And the third one, no, prayer usually means asking God for something. Meditation is ideation on God. The same person who answered no, prayer is not the same added, prayer is asking, talking. Meditation is listening. Okay, let's analyze it in the light of the philosophy. Okay, so we've been taking this philosophy course, and in the course we have covered a number of subjects. And I also gave a talk this afternoon. I'm giving the same course to a group of Italians. So Italians are very religious people. And there was the question about saying the rosary and meditation. So we analyzed the prayer, and the prayer was something like, "Oh God, come to me and help me, assist me." So that ideation is based on what philosophical background? Let's say, if I say, "God, come to me," it means God is in a separate place from me. So, according to our philosophy we have been studying, God is not in a separate place. Then the second is, "God, help me." Now, if I'm saying, "God, help me," it means that I feel that God is not helping me. In our philosophy, we were studying that Saguna Brahma means God, Saguna Brahma. Saguna Brahma wants everybody to get liberation. He made the creation in such a way that everybody is moving towards liberation, and he is helping everybody to move towards liberation. If that is the philosophy, then my asking him to help me is either I don't see that he has been helping me forever, and he will probably continue helping me until I reach the goal. I'm not seeing that. Therefore, I'm telling, "Hey, God, you are not doing your duty. Come and do it." No, that's basically what I'm telling. So here, what is the importance here? It is important to understand well the philosophy, to make some sense of it, so that we can analyze other practices. Because in the end, we can even say that everything is the same, but it looks the same up to a certain point. For example, I will give some material comparison. If I don't know much about cars and I'm walking on the street and I see, let's say, a Volkswagen, and then I see a Porsche, okay, or I see a Rolls Royce, I say, "Oh yes, that's one car and that's another car. Both have wheels, both have engine, so it's basically the same." To understand the difference, I have to know a little bit about that subject. So when we come to the practice, sadhana, there are different levels of practice. Some levels may just open up my mind a little bit. Some levels may just create in me the desire for spirituality. And some levels may bring me up to, let's say, Savikalpa Samadhi. And other practices may take me to Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So it is important to understand the differences and how to apply the right practice. No. And that is a little bit the scope or the objective of this course, that we can kind of understand it. No. Okay, thank you for your participation in this one. Now I'm bringing a question here that one of you wrote to me. It's a little bit long. Let me just read it. the question with some comments in between. Many times I have heard that the human experience is the most important. I have also read that in order to get to the human experience, we have to pass through all the other stages before. I think of the chart we saw on previous Tuesday's class about the crude to subtle and the other way. How exactly does this occur? How did our soul get to be human? What did our consciousness have to accomplish in the past to move through the cycle and to get to where it is now? Is this personally driven or collectively driven? So basically, the question is, we come to the human stage. To come to the human stage is not that we just appear immediately in the human stage. Our mind has to develop until it can manage a human body. The human body is the most advanced body. So to manage this most advanced body, we have to learn managing simpler bodies before. Makes sense. Makes sense that you first learn something simple, then you learn something a little bit more complicated, then something more and more, and then it's like you go first to kindergarten, then you go to first grade, second grade, third grade, then you come to high school, then you come to college. So mind needs this development. So to manage the human body, our mind had to learn in different other bodies. Now, how does this movement occur? Well, that's how things were set up. Suppose we take an animal body, after passing through other simpler, more primitive bodies, we came to an animal body. Now we may stay in that animal body for some years. Maybe we'll get another animal body, but it comes a certain point that our mind is so developed that it can take the step to take a human body. So the Prakriti is doing that, is taking the mind to the next step. So that is the role of Prakriti. How did our soul get to be human? By the mind developing, and then coming to the point that we can take a human body. So what did our consciousness have to accomplish in the past to move through the cycle? Until we reach the human, Prakriti is taking us. When it comes to the human stage, then we do sadhana to get free from Prakriti. But before that, basically Prakriti is guiding the animals, the plants. You see, the whole universe is moving in a certain way. The sun, the stars, the planet, everything seems to be going on automatically. But that is basically Prakriti doing all this. And that's all set up in a way that all beings are developing. Reaching the human form, then we can do the meditation so that we can get back to Nirguna Brahma. Is this personally driven or collectively driven? It is driven by Prakriti until we reach the human stage. That's why they say human has free will. That free will is our capacity to accelerate our movement towards consciousness. If we don't do it properly, we can also go the other direction. We can go towards crude. And now we come to the last point of the question here. Assuming that we break free from the cycle and enter eternal divine bliss, does the extroversial process begin again? So that was part of one of our classes, that if we reach back to Saguna Brahma, we'll go back in the process. But if we reach to Nirguna Brahma, non-qualified then we will not get back to the process. We only go back in the process if we are still under the influence of Prakriti. And in the Saguna stage is under the influence of Prakriti. So again, we go in the process. But Nirguna stage, we don't go back. That was one question from one of you. Another question was, when I was presenting the Sadripo, or the six internal enemies, there was one that I translated from the Sanskrit as attraction, and the other one as longing. Actually, longing for physical objects, worldly objects. So that was this one, kama, and attraction was moha. These are two of the six internal enemies. So the kama is very much related to objects, physical objects. Our mind gets attracted to physical objects that we think give us pleasure. Attraction, it could be towards an idea. I have an idea that comes to my mind and I can't get rid of it. It comes again and again. Suppose I'm sitting to do meditation and I'm not able to meditate because some idea is coming in my mind. That idea is not a physical object. It's just an idea, but I attracted to it. Or so there are similarities, but there are differences in these two ripos. Now let's see the questions for today. There is already one question here. After Nirguna stage, do we immediately lose our body or do we still live out our life? It depends. If we still have some samskara to exhaust, means we did some action, the reaction is still there, didn't happen yet. I do sadhana, I reach to the nirguna stage, but I still have that samskara. Then I come back and I have to exhaust that samskara. Then next time I reach to the nirguna state and I don't have any more samskaras, then I remain in that stage. If I remain in that stage, then I don't need the body anymore. So the body will be abandoned and it will die. So these two situations can happen. It can also happen that one reaches to the nirguna state and one is kind of free of samskaras, but in that situation one takes a samskara to keep the body and do service to humanity. That's also possible, you know. So one could attain the highest stage and remain living in the world to serve others, to take others towards realization. Thank you for attending today, and good night. Namaskar.